Originally published on my DFQ2 blog on July 10th, 2010. Tragic story of talented actress Peg Entwistle explained. A tabloid dubbed her the Hollywood Sign Girl. In 1932, Peg committed suicide by jumping off that famous landmark. It had been initially put up to advertise for a housing development called Hollywoodland. The pure irony is that if she had waited one day, she would have received an offer to play the lead role in a play, One Who Commits Suicide. Peg was a manic depressive who had simply given up on life at age 24, but that's getting ahead of the story. Let's first take a brief look at her history. She had simply experienced so much trauma throughout her whole life that she decided to end it. She was born in 1908. Her mother died when she was 2. Her father remarried when she was 6 years old. In 1916, she came over with the rest of her family from across the pond to New York City. Her father, Robert, had gotten a job as a stage manager. Tragedy hit in 1921. Her stepmother, Loretta, died from meningitis. A year later, Robert died from a hit-and-run accident. He had survived for weeks, but just before Christmas 1922, he passed on. Keep in mind the connection to Christmas. It will come into psychological play when we get to the part about 13 women. As an older teenager, Peg ended up living and acting in Boston. She was very good at the craft. Bette Davis saw her in a production and later claimed Entwistle had been her inspiration. Peg was no two-bit actress, and she had much success getting roles in theater. A couple years later, she relocated to New York and continued finding work on Broadway. In 1927, she married another actor named Robert Keith. Ironically, Robert's son Brian, from another relationship, took his own life in 1997. He is best known for his portrayal of Uncle Bill on the television series Family Affair. His suicide was similar to that of Annette Apollo's, a sort of self-inflicted euthanasia. Adding to even more irony, or perhaps coincidence, as the better word, the child star who played Buffy on that same show had earlier died of a drug overdose. There have been instances of death by internet. We can also easily find examples of death by Hollywood, or the curse of child stardom. This is where things perhaps get a bit dicey. Apparently, Robert Keith never told Peg about his previous marriage or his son Brian. More importantly, it would be nice to know if the following is true about claims of domestic violence. If so, that might have been the straw that broke the camel's back in regards to Peg's mental health condition. I find no reason to disbelieve this. In the Wikipedia entry on Peg, it says, she was granted a divorce from him in May 1929 when telling the judge that Keith, quote, pulled a handful of hair from her head and that only intervention of a New York hotel detective saved her from great bodily harm. Aside from charging him with cruelty, she claimed that he did not inform her that he had been married before and was the father of a 6-year-old boy, actor Brian Keith. End of Wikipedia, quote. Source number 11 reads as pulled hair. That's the one referring to the bodily injury. Source 11 is pulled hair. Stage star gets divorce after tale of fight with husband. The Pittsburgh Press, May 3rd, 1929, page 47. Source number 9 reads as girl ends life after failure in Hollywood. Syracuse Herald, September 20, 1932, page 5. Despite all her acting skills, Peg was unable to find success in Hollywood. She was definitely cute, but she didn't have the outrageously good looks of many of the other actresses of her day. For example, while many might not think Bette Davis was a hottie because of her later roles, in the early 30s she was quite the sultry babe with somewhat exotic looks. Peg had more of a plain Jane thing going. She finally got a break with the part in 13 Women. However, in screenings, the flick didn't get good responses. It was sliced and diced from 73 minutes to 59, with most of the cuts having to do with Peg's scenes.